Nigeria, we still pray. And well, we still pray. Some say that we pray too much, but I think it's important to pray. So we want to thank God for bringing us here safely, and also for seeing you in good health. Safety can be taken for granted. We just learned of an air disaster in San Francisco, where Boeing 777 crashed from South Korea on landing. We pray for the souls of those who may have departed, but we pray that everyone was safe. Having said this, let me thank Mr. Blackson for inviting us to be here in Atlanta, and the mission for the warm welcome that we have received since our arrival yesterday. Of the time we are concentrating on discussing Nigeria's problems, and we have not too much attention to the solutions. I think that remark is instructive. There is no society without problems. If we want to discuss America's problems, we can stay here till tomorrow, we'll never exhaust them. Yet America is #1 country economically and one of the most scientifically advanced countries. But it has problems, major problems. And there's no country without problems. There is no society without problems. There is no family without problems. There is no single human being without problems. Life itself is a big problem to solve. The day you stop solving, you go. So, therefore, we need to be very philosophical about life. And being philosophical means that those problems are challenges, which is what Mr. Blackson discussed. That we need to, translate problems to challenges. And once you present problems as challenges, you also find that challenges are opportunities. Because if there are no challenges, there will be no opportunities. So if a society faces challenges, it means that whereas those who they don't have the right tone of mind, will continue to lament. Why don't we have stable light? Why don't we have good roads? Why don't we have first-class education? They lament. They continue to look at it as an obstacle. But those who have the right tone of mind will say, oh, so we don't have stable light? Man, what can we do about it? Is there anything there for me to do? Can I translate that into an investment? Is there some money to be made from this lack of stable light? And that is how some societies look at those problems, and they are able to continue to advance from one stage to another. And even when you have stable light, some will say, man, can we make this cheaper? Are there materials, new cables that we can convert? Okay, can we move on to safer energy? So these are the things. So at all times, there will be something new from what exists. And I think if we develop our mindsets this way, then we will find that at all times, in every generation, there will be problems. But those who are prepared to make impact will look at those problems as challenges and opportunities, and they will design, realign their lives to make sure that they make impact in their generation, and the history will capture them. That when this problem existed, this is what somebody did about it, right? When there was taxation without representation, somebody said, no, come on, United Kingdom, stop it. We won't pay taxes without representation. That became a huge issue in the American Revolution. The Boxon Tea Party and all that. So, therefore, I'm happy with my colleagues to be here in the United States, and we're truly happy to see you and to say that we are here to share views. We are not here to tell you stories. We are here more to hear from you what really you can do for Nigeria at this time. As to what we are doing at home, for those of you who maybe show a lot of interest in what goes on at home, I think we have unleashed so much information in recent times about Nigeria, which you can access We just recently, we're almost concluding the ministerial platform that Unite, which was the second edition. We started it last year, May. What is it about? We feel that every year we should give account of what government has achieved and the work in progress. So we started it last year, and all the ministries and MDAs represented by their ministers gave their own scorecards. At the end of the first year, this is the second year of the president's tenure. Again, we have given midterm reports. The president himself just recently, on May 29, launched a midterm report, which is a comprehensive report of what this government has done in the last 2 years, and looking forward what we expect to do in the next 2 years. And then we follow it up with a detailed presentation, ministry by ministry, which is the ministerial platform we're just about to complete. And under this program, every minister presents what he or she has done, and then takes questions from the public and also through the social media. And these platforms are live on NTA, Radio Nigeria, Channels Television, AIT Television. We're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on all the social media platforms. And if you just want to know what we have done, for every ministry, what it has done, they are still there permanently. You can always access, and you will sit in your sitting room and read everything that has happened. Or go to YouTube, you can replay back what everybody has said over this period. So we have so much information out there for Nigerians, for anybody interested in our country to look at and see what they can do, to help in filling the gaps or the opportunities that exist. So I won't be here to speak too much about what we have done, because we have been saying that over and over. So we'll invite you, before we go, we'll also give you our social media sites so that you can visit. You can find out on your own what is happening in agriculture, what is happening in power, what is happening in health, what is happening in road construction. So it's all there in pictures, details, and so on. So we'll be giving you those platforms so that you can go home and further research, follow us on what we are doing. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to use the new media to place information for all Nigerians so that they can see, can follow, can also give us feedbacks on their own observations. Let me say that the Nigerian Conversation, this is my second time of appearing before you. I was in England, in London the last time. That was Commonwealth Conversations, right? And this is the Nigerian Conversation. I appreciate it. I will start by saying that we would like to continuously engage Nigerians in whatever fora they put forward for us to discuss with them. But I will start by really congratulating you all, like Chief Okoye said. We're beginning to have a lot of inflow of capital from our own diaspora. Like he said, last year, we had close to $22 billion coming from Nigerians all over the world, into the Nigerian economy. The cumulative foreign direct investment, FDI, into Nigeria last year was less than 8 billion. So you can see that Nigerians have taken home money almost thrice what foreign investors are taking into the Nigerian economy. Which means that sometimes we are putting attention in the wrong places. And we're beginning to refocus. Last week I was with Steve Forbes in the launching of the Ebony Live television about Mo Abudu in Lagos. And Steve Forbes was saying he predicts that Nigeria is going to be the center of gravity in terms of economic growth in Africa. Not long from now. Even now we're the #1 in terms of growth in the continent, but it's beginning to see Nigeria as a place of global impact. And he says for that to happen, Nigerians must be the lead investors. Because if you don't invest in your country, what do you want other person to come? So I won't come to your house if you're not eating the food you cook. I won't eat. But if you eat, then I know that it's edible. Right? So therefore, it's logical a large country of 167 billion people. You know, first, by that number alone, you are a market, you are an opportunity. 167 million. It's not a small number at all. More than twice the population of ECOWAS countries. So, therefore, the fact of our size alone in numbers is the greatest opportunity we offer every investor around the world today. 66% of this number of 167 billion are below the age of 35. So we are talking about a young population, not an aging population like you see in most European countries, where you have maybe 60% of the population are above 60 years old, which is an aging country. So which means that if an investor wants to set up a fashion designing industry, he'll be looking at this population. Do I have a future here? How many young people will continue to look at the trends as I produce these new fashions? And if the population is aging, then you don't have a future there. You've got to go to a new place where young people are going to be on and on and on, and you can plan for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So Nigeria has a young population, which is the greatest opportunity that any country can have in these times around the world. So with that population, what it means is that the rest of the world is beginning to look at us as an opportunity. Before now, that population was not an opportunity because the surrounding circumstances were not good enough. One, we were not a democracy until 1999. And before then, because we were not a democracy, because we didn't have a stable system of competitive polity where you can predict when leaders will come and when they will go, nobody was ready to risk his investment. I put my money here now. This military dictator says this is the policy. I don't know how long it's going to last before his colleagues will kick him out and change it again. So I can't predict this. So people are not coming on. But now, in the last 13 years or so, we have had a stable system of government, which is democratic, which is constitutional. And because of that stability, we have seen people come in and go out. We have seen governors elected. We have seen them now in the streets. If they thought they were the most important before, now they're walking the street with the other people they were loading it on. And that is beginning to bring humility. It's beginning to dawn on all of us in position of authority that this is temporary, so behave yourself. You know, I think that in itself is a great thing that has happened in our country. It's a great thing. And we're beginning to see how it is working gradually to change attitudes to governance, to power, to positions of authority. Some guys are still crazy, you know, you can't avoid that once in a while. But most people are now beginning to see public office as timed, as something that will come and go. And that when you stay there, remember you're going to join people on the street. If you misbehave, the time you go out, you will meet the same people. And when I see former governors, former ministers, you know, now join the queue, you know, everywhere they go. Before then, they were blasting sirens when they were in office. Everybody will have to run from the road. Now the vehicles go like every other one. So that tells us that a lot of things are happening. Humility is beginning to come down to power and positions. And then gradually, the next generation or so will begin to now look at public office as an opportunity to make your society better. Not to make yourself better, to make your society better. And that's how it has happened here over the last 237 years. So that democracy for me is the greatest thing that has happened in our country. It has stabilized. Everybody going to Nigeria now knows that there's a constitution. If I'm going to have an investment, there are laws. The courts will always, if somebody, any other company or individual has an encounter with me that is not good, my investments can be protected. I can go to court in Nigeria and be sure that I will win my case and that the courts will not be urged to do anything other than what the law says. So law-governed society is the basis for growth and development. And I think that is the great thing that has happened to us. And for me, because it's not an accident that over the last couple of years, the economy is now growing at almost an average of 7% per annum. Before then, under the military, 2%, 1%, even that was not sure because you didn't know how the statistics were cooked. Now, in a law-governed society, we're beginning to see growth. We're beginning to see the level of people coming into Nigeria to do business. I don't know how long you have been to Lagos, for example. If you go to Lagos now, you see the high-rise hotels that are coming. You see the Bar Beach being recovered. People are already paying for lands. You know, these things were not going on before now. Now there are lots of investments that are coming into the country. And so, because of our democratic system, we have seen the economy now growing with stability. So that means that more people now want to do business in Nigeria because they can predict the government. They can predict policies. They can be sure that the investment is secure. These are the issues for me. So a large population, young population, a democratic society, a law-governed society with stable, predictable tenure of leaders. These are the foundations of a new Nigeria that I believe are being led by us Nigerians. The other point I want to make clearly is that in this new society, we're beginning to see why certain things didn't work in the past. Before the advent of democracy, Nigeria operated a pseudo-socialist society founded on a dictatorship that was not even the people's dictatorship. Because socialist societies like China were revolutionary societies where the masses came to power and established their system. But our own pseudo-socialism of the military is state dictatorship that decided that it will control every other aspects of the economy. And what happened? You could not invest in power, you couldn't build your own independent plan because the state must be the so-called commanding heights of the economy that were controlled by the Nigerian state. Even airlines, you could not long ago establish your own airline. Until 2001, you could not run a telecom company in Nigeria. All the telephones were controlled by government. Because soldiers were afraid that if people have private phones, they could stage coup, since there was no democratic foundation for that regime. So a lot of things were cut off completely. You know, then the indigenization decree of the past era, which shut off, capital from coming into the country. These were all done. Now, in the end, we have found that it is policies that drive development. It's policies that drive development, ideas and policies. Now, with a new democratic society, we're beginning to see policies that are driving development. I just gave the example of the telecoms. 2001, we had 450,000 analog lines. They were never working. I was a reporter, so I knew that. I was in Kano. For me to take a story to Lagos, I needed 2-3 hours. A story that would take maybe less than 10 minutes. But then you have to, hey, I'm here, editor. You have to speak and then they write with long hand. Because there was no internet, you could not send any report to anybody. But 2001, places opened up, new telecom companies. Between 2001, we had no internet, nothing. Nigeria was zero on the internet. Today, Nigerians on the net are 48 million people, almost the population of South Africa. Just in 12 years, and the telecom companies are making more money now than banks. They have expanded the economy, they have employed millions of Nigerians, they have opened up the economy, they have increased productivity, they have made communication easier. You can stay here and speak with your family in Nigeria any moment. It was not so before. Now, what happened is simply a policy that has opened up a sector. Now, we are doing similarly in other places. Power, you could not invest. Now we have done a new power roadmap, which the president launched in 2011. Now, the new power roadmap says, why didn't Nigeria have stable electricity? Because the state controlled the construction of all power plants, transmission lines, If you are not government, you could not build a power plant, you could not own transmission lines, and for that reason, government bureaucracy and incompetence killed the entire system. Nobody was investing. No new plants were built. There was no competitive industry that people could bring in money and advance. Now that has changed. We have just finished the bidding for all the power plants and transmission companies. So what used to be like a government controlled sector like NITEL that never gave you telephone lines is now going entirely to the private sector. So power will not improve because of government decision now. We believe it will improve now because it has become a business. Companies will be more interested in getting power 24 hours and paying for it, company to company, than a government bureaucracy that does not give you power but takes money every month. So that is changing now. That is changing now. That is now changing to come something close to what obtains here now. It will not be overnight. I expect that in the next 3, 4, 5 years, the power revolution in Nigeria will take place. Power revolution will take place. Just like the telecom revolution has taken place. Power revolution is taking place right now. It's going on. And when we bidded, more than 70 companies from around the world came in to participate, which means that there is confidence in the economy. And people now think it's predictable. So, well, I don't want to say about what we do. I want to discuss policies more than what government is doing on its own. Because what government is doing on its own it will be far too short of what is required. Because all over the world, for a large economy, it's not government, it's private sector, private companies, individuals that invest. But on our own, we are building 10 new power plants. That is, government is building 10 new power plants, and in 2014, all of them will be completed. Before the end of this year, a number of them will be completed. The one in Sapele has been completed, is giving already power. We are building one at Odugbani near Calabar. We are building at Alaoji near Aba. We are building 10 of them across at Baren in Bayelsa State, at Ehoba, close to Benin, at Oloroshogo in I think Ogun State. So 10 of those power plants have been built, virtually being completed now. This month or so, one of the private power plants called Geometrics will be commissioned in Aba, and it will start giving light to the people of Aba. In fact, they say they want to give not only uninterrupted power supply, but uninterruptible. That's how they. That is how they describe it. Which means that Aba and its environs, we therefore definitely be getting. You see, look at all those factories in Aba. They're waiting for somebody to give them power. They don't care who. They don't want power from government. They want stable power. Now they're going to get it through private sector investment because we have opened up the system. And even the one we're building, if you notice, last month there was a roadshow in England to sell them out. So government is not going to keep those power plants. There was a roadshow in to put in their money and take over those power plants and manage them. And those who want to build new ones, they will do so. You know, so the 2 hydroelectric power plants, Zungiru in Niger State, we've just done the groundbreaking. The president went there last month, and Zungiru will give us close to 750 megawatts. Then we're about to do the groundbreaking for Mambila, and Mambila will give us about 3,050 megawatts of electricity. We're working with the Chinese to invest there. So gradually the power problem will be solved. So electricity, it is now going to come. So what will you do about it? These opportunities are coming. What you saw as a problem is now an investment opportunity. Right? So we are converting through new policies all the problems into investable opportunities for Nigerians and other people around the world. So we're opening up power with just the agriculture. Used to be hoe and cutlass. That's what has been the situation all along. Who and cutlass is still largely our agriculture, right? But we are beginning a new agricultural revolution. We have the agricultural transformation agenda, ATA. We floated it at the World Economic Forum in Davos last year, and the rest of the world is looking to it seriously now. We're opening up agriculture, a new chain of agricultural production, from cropping to processing and marketing. And we have a lot of money that has been put on ground by the Central Bank of Nigeria for people who want to invest in agriculture, but we're also looking for direct investments for those who really want to put in a lot in agriculture. And our first target is to ensure that by 2015 we stop rice importation, because Nigeria has the capacity to give rice to the world. We should not be bringing rice into Nigeria, we should be sending rice out of Nigeria. That's what we need to do. Right now, this year, dry season agriculture, we cultivated about 1.1 million metric tons of rice. If you went to KB this year, KB State, across 12 local governments, you will see, kilometers and kilometers of rice farms. Kilometers, dry season agriculture. If you want to Bakalori, you will see the same thing. Now, before now, Uncle Benz, you remember, for those of you who are in the 80s and 70s, Uncle Benz. If you didn't eat it, you are not an important Nigerian. You are not an important Nigerian. And that was the mentality. Gradually, we have come to discover that Uncle Benz is not as nutritious as that rice in Abakaliki. That Ofada rice in Abakaliki is more nutritious than Uncle Benz that is half done, half chaff, and does not give you any much nutrients. Now, but people prefer Uncle Benz because it was destoned. You eat the local rice, you bite stones, you get dental problems. Right? You have appendicitis because one of those stones will enter and they can't come out. Now, we are setting up big rice mills in Nigeria to destone rice, process it, and make sure we have the best rice. So if you go to Abakaliki and you see Ebony rice, we are just finishing installing Labana rice mills in Kebbi. So all over the country, these are going on now. So you don't need Uncle Benz. Right now, the president does not, we don't serve foreign rice in the presidency. We eat what is grown. So there is a lot of things that are going on. And we're doing a lot of rice projects in Taraba, in Kebbi, in Kano, in Zamfara, in Ebonyi, in Anambra, in all of us. A lot of opportunities are coming up. We are also trying to use cassava. We are the largest producer of cassava in the world. But we don't even have starch. We have to import starch. We don't process cassava. Now, there are huge cassava processing mills that are coming up. We are also exporting cassava to China, cassava chips. So there are processing plants that are being established right now. And one good story is that whereas we were told that only wheat could give us good bread, wheat, maybe because it comes from you here. So there's a lot of stories, but we have discovered that the best bread in Nigeria, in the world, is from cassava. Best bread in the world is cassava bread. It tastes better, it's more nutritious, and it's better. So now we have started cassava bread. First of all, we mix cassava flour with wheat, and just about 20 to 30%, we have taken off something in the region of 215 billion import of wheat by simply placing, and it's going up and up. So we found that in the next couple of years, we may be completely free from the wheat trap. That was what one professor said. What do you call Professor? I've forgotten him. I'll get it. He wrote a book called The Wheat Trap. Where the rice trap we're going to get out by the grace of God by 2015. Well, one leg is already out. We're just trying to bring out the other leg from the rice trap. So we'll get out of it. And we also find that a lot of wheat can be grown in the country. So you will be amazed that wheat is being grown in Borno, in most of the far northern states, Kano, Borno, Bakolori, and so on. It is possible to grow wheat, very good wheat, in Nigeria. So agriculture right now is growing. The GDP growth that you hear now is not led by oil and gas, it's led by agriculture. That is what is happening in the country right now. Yes, it's led by agriculture. It's the fastest growing sector in the country right now. So moving on. So please, if your granddad has some land in the village, you better go and find out what is happening to it now. Because in the next couple of years, honestly, agriculture is looking very, very nice in all sectors. We are trying to get moringa, moringa that you hear a lot about here. It's always been part of our nativity for long in the country. We call it zogale in the northern part of the country. We even do salad with it, we cook soup with it. We didn't know it was such a wonder crop until now. Well, people are growing it, people are making tea with it already. If you go to Nigeria, you have moringa tea, moringa. A lot of things are happening there. So there are opportunities, for agriculture in Nigeria. We're tapping on it. And we are opening up agriculture to private sector as a business. No longer agriculture, where government supplies fertilizer through a lot of contract scams. Now, nothing is happening. For the second year now, we have taken off government supply of fertilizer from the contract table. It's done directly by the private sector. So all those scams where people imported sand and call it fertilizer is all gone now. So it is now a relationship between farmer and supplier. Government is only the mediator. That way we are getting a lot of things changed. So what government is doing now is to provide extension services, new seeds free for cocoa, for sorghum, for maize, for rice. And those are the things that are going on now in Nigeria. So please, you can come into agriculture if you wish. Now, a lot of other things. Mining. Mining is a big deal. We are doing a lot of reforms there, a lot of studies, opening up the sector and so on. And please, we find that we are richer in solid minerals than in oil and gas. You won't believe it. Gold, barytes, tantalites, all the precious stones are found in different parts of Nigeria. So we're opening up those sectors again for people. You will be shocked that one of the highest growth area is mine driven, which is cement production, limestone. Today, from a net importer 10 years ago, Nigeria now has a glut of cement produced at home. We're looking for places to export. To have enough self-sufficient. You remember the 70s, the cement armada that came from abroad? Now there is cement armada at home trying to go out for export. So the Dangote cement and so on, you have the largest cement plant in the world now in Kogi. Largest cement plant in the world is now located in Kogi State, close to Abuja, because there is enough limestone. So we're producing enough cement. We're not talking about how we'll export cement. We're self-sufficient and there is a glut. This is what has happened in the last 10 years of policy change. So a lot of things are happening in the country. And I think that we need to reassure you that these are the developments. Now, in the railways, 2 days ago, the Vice President did the beginning of the laying of the rail tracks. We're building a standard gauge line, the first one between Abuja and Kaduna. We're 65% through. It's expected that between another year or so we'll complete, and then we'll begin to introduce the one who was talking about. No, the one we rehabilitated are the old narrow gauge lines, led by the British. We are doing that to make sure that we continue at least to move. But we are building new tracks, the standard gauge for faster trains. So we finished the one from Uwari up to Ajakuta. It will come up to Itakpa Hills where we are mining iron ore. But the one between Abuja and Kaduna is the first commercial one. And then we'll do the groundbreaking soon between Ibadan and Lagos. So all of them will be interlinked, to crisscross the rest of the country. So we expect that gradually we will replace the old train lines that are very slow and sluggish with the fast trains. So we're just beginning them now. Again, these are private sector driven. Because we are so many that nobody that has a rail line between Lagos and Abuja or Kano will lose. Because millions of passengers are going to travel through those roads every month. So you can raise your money. So we are beginning to do that. But the old gauge, we are virtually finishing the rehabilitation so that the trains will start moving all over the country. Then gradually we are building the new trail lines. To move this big population, we can't go by road. It's not. No big population country goes by road. Rail is the real place where you move goods and services. So we're now investing. So again, another area that has become an opportunity for all Nigerians and foreigners alike. So a lot of we have dragged the Niger now up to Barrow. We have built Onitsha Inner City Port. We're building Barrow. We're building Ogota in Imo State, and we're building another one at Lokoja. So that we'll now use the River Niger to convey goods and services. Already barges are using the Niger now. So that is being done. Somebody just told you about to do the groundbreaking for the second Niger bridge at Onitsha. And so a lot of infrastructure things are going on in the country. We still need more because a lot of these things are still government driven, and it's not possible for government to provide a budget for this infrastructure. If you go to India, go to Malaysia, go to several of these countries, it's private sector that are building roads, building railways. So we're introducing what we call now the Infrastructure Regulatory Commission. The PPP projects are the ones now that will be driving the future. So government can't have enough money to build roads, and we have gaps. So we're expecting that if you have good business partners and you want to build a road in Nigeria, we even take over the existing ones to manage and raise your money. We are ready to hand over to you. So there are so many opportunities then for investment in the country. So I'll summarize by saying Nigeria right now is a gold mine for investors. All the problems you see, we are converting them through appropriate policies for opportunities. Education, health, we are having challenges there because there is a rot that has accumulated for a long time in public education. We are sinking in more money, but it's beyond money. We are creating new policies to have private universities, private schools, but then public schools must be strong in every country that wants to make progress. Only few people go through private schools. The real revolution in education must still be the public school, because there are certain things that government is better placed to do, and education is one of them in all countries. So we need to do more, and we're getting more money. The ETF, the education tax we introduce, is taking a lot of money into education, universal basic education. So a lot of the work is ongoing, but over 1, 2, 3 more administrations, I expect a lot of improvement in public education as we fill in the gaps in infrastructure, teacher training, facilities, books, putting computers in school. We're doing so. We're creating new internet platforms for all universities, all public universities, so that they have internet services, they can go online, e-learning. That we are doing. Also putting computers in secondary schools, using the NCC, Universal Service Provision Fund, which we get from money that comes from telecoms. We are putting computers in schools, internet services. So those are ongoing. So I think honestly that education as we see it today, again, is changing. Not changing as fast as we would like, because problems in education are more difficult. They have to do with values, with attitudes, so it will take a little while, but definitely we're on the road to getting things better in that sector. For health, because you talk of a lot of doctors here, I appreciate a lot of what Nigerians have achieved, particularly in education and in health sciences. We are doing so well. 2 days ago, we just got a report that Nigerians smashed all records in Russia. One Victor Lalosi smashed all the records in the Moscow health institution. got a first class 5.0. You know, a record that has never been set in that school by a Nigerian who came from home, who was schooled at home, did primary and secondary school at home. Public schools, yes. You know, he got the best in JAM in 2004, and then he was in Obafemi Awolowo University and got a federal scholarship to Russia and has smashed all the records there. And you can count so many Nigerians smashing records all over the world. You know, so which means that typically we are highly focused, highly talented people. You know, highly focused, highly talented. Because we don't have any encumbrances. Nigerians have free spirit. You know, we didn't have settler colonialism to tame our spirit or give us that lack of confidence. Nigerians are culturally free. And because you are culturally free, you can reach the heights of your dreams. Because if you are not culturally free, it limits your capacity to think, to flower. Cultural freedom gives you confidence. And because we're in Africa today, you go to any place in Nigeria, you will find that at least 70 to 80% of the people being there very happy in their traditional costumes and dresses. You know, you hardly ever see anybody in any wedding in any place. If you go to Owambe, Lagos, or you go to any wedding in the East or anywhere, Nigerians are the people in Africa today that have a unique culture, unique fashions that are designed by us according to our own tradition. Those things matter. Those things matter. So we have the confidence that we have because we are culturally free. And because of that, we can compete either on the football pitch or anywhere with anybody in the world without any inferiority complex. Those are the things that give you an edge. You know? Those are the things that give you an edge. So we have the confidence to compete with people. And that is why you see a lot of the doctors you talk here on top of their jobs. Whether they are doctors or engineers or anywhere, on top of their jobs. Because they come from a background of cultural freedom, of confidence in their own identity. I don't know how many people still here want to look different from what God has made you to be. But I think, I think that these days, sorry, let me say this, I'm sorry. You know, before now, our guests used to think that the best way to look good is to look very thin and lean, so that everybody would think that you're a model. But I now begin to go around and I see people trying to look more like you now. Trying to get some... Thank you. So, if you keep being who you are, one day people will think you are the best in the world. And it's happening right now. Right? So please just be yourself. And I think that's what we have been. So therefore, Nigeria is the country that can get these things done. And we are doing that now by unleashing also the Nollywood industries. You know, before now, if you didn't watch Hollywood, it's like you didn't live. Now, if you don't watch Nollywood, something must be wrong. So we are now finding ways to tell African stories, authentic story from Africa, just like Indians have told their story through Bollywood. Nigeria has just joined, and we have created an industry that is contributing billions and billions of naira to the economy, giving our young people confidence, giving them cultural expression. We are working on it right now, reforming it, setting aside money to improve their craft. And I'm sure that a cultural power, Nigeria is a cultural power, because we harbor the largest, like you're talking of 200 ethnic, 250 different cultures. You know, we're far more than that. So, which means that each of that has its unique way of looking at the world, with their own stories different, with their own perception of the world different. So when you now harness this, array of cultural diversities and insights, the world will keep seeing different stories. Every day there will be new stories to the world. And that is what Nigeria has the capacity to do, a cultural power. a true, authentic African cultural power. That is what we should aspire to be. And Nollywood is giving it that expression now. I went to Kenya, one ambassador from East African country, if we don't send their children before 4 p.m., they are hooked to Nigerian films. They no longer listen to us. I said, thank you very much, that is good. They are not Nigerian films, they are African films. So that is how it is. African magic everywhere is all Nigerian. That is what we can do for the world. With little more confidence, with little more love for what we do, what God has enabled us to do. Then we have a lot of biodiversity, that again is not tapped yet. What medicines will be coming out of Nigeria, only God has the records now. But definitely the world is beginning to look at our own biodiversity as even more lucrative than oil and gas. So you are sitting on such a potential, a capacity, that Nigerians should stop complaining. That is why I've come to appeal to you. Stop complaining. Please, if you don't have a solution to the challenge you see, you'll sit down and think. Let's stop lamenting and complaining. Because the rush I have seen Chinese come into our country now is amazing. It's amazing. So as long guys are voting out, people are running in. Therefore, we must think home. We must think home right now. Things have changed. Sorry you can't vote now, but you vote. It's a matter of time. Let me tell you, America became independent in 1776. Between 1776 and 1921, only the black American, only the white American adult could vote. Women had no vote. Women had no vote. So it was a democracy of minorities. Only the white male adult and landowner could vote between 1776 and 1921. And between then and 1965, the blacks could not vote. So sometimes we don't have a sense of history. We don't have a sense of history. That democracy was not perfect. It was a democracy of minorities. It was a democracy of the white Anglo-Saxon. It was not a democracy of women who were half of the population. It was not a democracy of blacks population. It was not a democracy of Hispanics. That was what existed. But nobody looks at it. When you look at America, it's perfect. It is coming from a lot of difficulties and challenges. But they didn't say it was not democratic. When they tell the story, they tell you that, oh, this is the most beautiful story in the world. It's not so. It was not for everybody. But that means that once you start, it is capable of improving. We are just, this is the 14th year. 1999 to now, 14 years. So we can't address all those problems in 14 years. What we are trying to do is to perfect the system at home, to make sure that people who want to manipulate elections no longer succeed. That's what the president has done. And that is the reform, for me, that is most significant about our democracy. The president has brought in new electoral processes, independent INEC, making the process more difficult for those who would want to rig. And because of that, we are seeing multiplicity of parties win elections in Nigeria. That is what we want. We want our election to be like the electronic equipment at the airport. Now you can carry anything from your house, but before you enter the plane, you are screened out. This is what we want. Everybody can want to stand for election, but unless people vote for you, you should never be a leader. Once that becomes the case, then you know that it is only by working for the people that you retain your job. So we want the electoral system to be competitive. And that is the best way of fighting corruption. Because if you steal, people are going to vote you out. That's how it is. We are talking about capital leaving Nigeria. Capital will soon return to Nigeria. Because part of the reason why capital was leaving Nigeria, the investment market was so bad. Even those who stole the money in those days could only take it out because there was no opportunity at home for even the investment to take place. But now that we are opening up the economy, I believe Nigerians will be the lead investors. And once that happens, much more money will go home. And as democracy becomes the norm, it is going to defeat, people are not stupid. I discover people, ordinary people, they are smart. They know who is genuine and who is not. So if you give them the opportunity, they know who they want to represent them. Once that becomes the culture, look, Corruption is everywhere. It is the chances of escaping with a crime that encourages people to misbehave. You know, people are not different anywhere in the world. But once the system, the reforms, the systems are open, like we have now a democracy, we have independent judiciary coming up, we have Freedom of Information Act, which we sign into law, which means that any Nigerian can go to any ministry or department and say, look, this contract you awarded, they said, I need the records. If he says no, you can go to court. The court will compel him or her to bring the records to court. So as more people take advantage of a free media, of a competitive electoral process, you know, it will change Nigeria. It's a matter of 1-2 generations. There are many things people did in this America 100 years ago that they can't repeat now. Because the system has changed. So it is these reforms, it's the policy reforms that will fight off. It's not just the presence of the police on the street. It's the way the system works, new ideas, new policies, transparent systems. Even now you're talking of ministerial platform. Now every year a minister must come and tell the public what he has done. It was never so in the past. So you know that between now and next year, if you don't do anything, people will see you through that you're a lazy minister or you're not performing. Now these are the systems that I believe are going to make Nigeria better. So I'll appeal to you as compatriots to begin to, you know, have more creative ways of looking at opportunities at home. We're not all out there yet, but I think that there are definite things that are happening in Nigeria today that makes our country different from what it was. Yes, challenges we will have. Security challenges, we will overcome them. We're already overcoming them. You know, again, a new society trying to emerge from a dictatorship. Some politicians think that the best way to win an election is to assemble a group of thugs and give them drugs, give them guns to go and harass everybody. Now, when you win, then those thugs are left on the street and they become a problem for everybody. And that is where we have had all these problems. So, but gradually, when people think they can't force their way, they will calm down. And it is going to happen gradually. And I think we're finding solutions to a lot of those problems. But in spite of those challenges, in a few states in the north, the economy remains the fastest growing in the country. There is a boom in Nigeria. So that boom is continuing. And gradually everybody is beginning to see the link between peace and progress. If you allow insurgency and crisis to take place in your community, what it means is that you're going to be left behind while your own neighbors are moving forward. You know, so there's a limit to how much you can delay your own progress. So I think that is becoming the reality now in the country. And I've seen a national convergence of opinion for peace in Nigeria right now. North, South, everybody is now saying enough is enough, let's move forward. And I think that is victory. That is victory. So we'll continue to pray for more progress, and I believe that with time we will overcome. Let me thank you for this reception, and I hope that next time we'll have another conversation. There will be more people who would like to have more participation. You know, we'd like to see people from across board, because it's important. It takes a lot to come out. So when you want to come out, you want to see an audience that is cross-cutting, that is widespread out, and so that when we say something, we mean that it will be replicated across board, and people will see that this visit will also attract some responses. So I thank you, Blackson, and all of you in the Nigerian Conversation for this opportunity for us to talk to you once again. I've just given you a synopsis. I assure you that your country, our country, is stable, is making progress. The diaspora is making a lot of impact. Don't forget, even though you don't vote, you are taking the most important jobs right now. Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She wasn't home during the election. She's running the economy perfectly now because we brought her to do a lot of things. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Segun Aganga, is a diasporan, moving around the world. The agricultural revolution is being done by Adesina, again, a diasporan. The guy went to your school. Great. So now they are making a lot of progress. Communication technology. So a lot of diasporans are home already, doing a lot of the groundwork, and we expect that more and more of you will come home and take important responsibilities, give us suggestions, give us policies, so that together we'll do what the Chinese have just done, mixing up with the diaspora to take China from the backwaters to the front seat of global economic development. That is what I foresee of Nigeria in the next decade. Thank you for